Okay, it looks like the live stream's live and working. I did get some feedback from people about a live stream the other day breaking up so bad you couldn't hear it. One person told it to me, and then I got at least one other person told it to me. So I don't know what happened, but I have an idea. I think that when I came into the room, it was cold and there was noise in the house, so I shut the door, and that probably hurt um, the broadcast, the bandwidth. So I don't have another explanation. I think the timing coincided correctly. So uh, I've got the door open, and I just put insulated pants on to stay warmer until this heats up, but it's getting rough here. It gets very, very cold here. They tell you that concrete holds heat. Yeah, I don't believe it. The buildings are all concrete. The roof with tile over the concrete. The floor is concrete with tile, and the walls are concrete. They use single pane junk windows that um, leak. And the way you can improve your house is they have these shutters that they're on the outside of the window. They're about a half-inch thick, and they're plastic. And if you close them, you get no light in the house. So goodbye circadian rhythm. And it does keep the house somewhat warmer. But if you shut the heat off in the house, you got an hour, hour and a half, and then it gets cold. I was watching stuff on YouTube, and it was hot, and I dozed off and fell asleep for 1 or 2 hours, and I didn't have the cover on. I was laying on top of the cover, and I woke up and I was pretty cold. And with the blankets I have one older blanket that's in pretty not so good condition, and it is a super king size, which the supermarkets do here. And they buy them in one size, the biggest they got, so it fits everybody. But it doesn't work that great. It falls all over the floor. I trip on it. The dogs walk on it. It's a pain in the neck, and it ain't that great. And I don't even know it's pretty okay. But I've watched myself with that, and when I touch like my thighs or something, I'm sleeping cold in that. So what I did is somebody was good enough to send me some Amazon gift cards from Europe. So I went and I found out that in Europe they measure blankets with a number, a TOG number. They also measure hats. And I don't know if they measure coats like that. I'm going to look into it today. But I do okay with these things. These are cheap Amazon, like a Sherpa thing. They're not bad. This one's worn out. It's been through a few washings, but it's good enough for indoors. And if I go out, I just layer up. I've got stuff I could layer with. So it's not that bad. The thing is, if I go out in the street, it's warmer than the house. That's the crazy thing. So I don't think this concrete thing works. I really don't. So I bought a blanket with a TOG 15 rating, which is really a pretty heavy duty rating. The colder countries in Europe will use these. See, the thing is, a lot of you, like in America, Canada, other countries, go to sleep. It's much colder than Israel, but you have a heater on. You have a heat pump or some form of heat that you run during the night, because if it's, let's say Fahrenheit, 0 or 5 or 10 degrees, and you shut everything off, you're going to have freezing in the house. Now, we used to have this in the Bronx in New York. They would kill the heating at 11 o'clock at night. You had radiators, and they just shut it off. And we used to get a good quarter of an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch of ice on the inside of the windows. So I'm rather sure most of you that live in cold climates, Norway maybe and stuff like that. Actually, Norway's not that cold. You probably have some sort of heat running in the house at night, or you could start creating freezing situations. Like I know people in Canada that they'll have let's say they take a turkey and they have a turkey, and then they don't put it in the fridge because it's hard to get a big bird in the fridge. They probably put a wrapper on it and they put it in the garage, which is not heated. It works fine. Um, and it's so cold, it's going to be unlikely that you're going to get a mouse or a rat or a cockroach or anything like that in the garage because it's so cold. I don't know what happens to the street cats and the street dogs when it gets that cold. I have no idea. I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, so um, I ordered one of it. They're so cheap. They're about $30, $40. And but I don't know if it's even going to be enough because most people that run heat in their house are going to run the heat at about 60 degrees. Because then you can walk around and, you're not going to freeze. If you don't, and you're in a really cold climate, your house is going to be, you know, 40 degrees, 30 degrees. You're going to really have to bundle up in the house. And then when you wake up in the morning and turn your heater back on, you're going to have, till the house really gets warm, a minimum of 30 minutes, if not an hour, you know. So, but we got a different problem here because my opinion, the tile floors just suck the heat out of the house. See, you probably have carpeted floors, and that's a tremendous difference. You probably have concrete under your floor, under your carpet. Then you probably have one or two carpet liners in there. The more luxurious houses put two of them in, so you get a nice soft effect. And that the even one liner and the carpet is going to keep heat in so much better than a cold tile floor. So I'm going to see how this works. See, most people are going to have their house they'll set the thermostat at 60. Some more brave people might go to 59 or 58, but we think that, let's say if it's 43 degrees outside, we think the house goes down to about 40, 37, 38, 40 degrees. And it's really cold. Now, I got used to it. I went out. So my wife wound up getting her hands on some firewood for the stove. So she needed more firewood. So I went out, and it was early evening. And I went out there, and all I had on was my underwear. Nobody could see where we are in that area. So I just had a T-shirt and my briefs on. And I went out there, and I was collecting firewood, and I was okay with it. You see, I'm used to being frozen in the house. It's stupid. Now, how cold was it outside? In the 50s, I think. Probably 56, 58, Uh, so I've really got myself used to cold weather. I mean, it's nuts. And it's artificial because it doesn't get that cold. So I ordered one of these, a TOG 15 blanket, which is supposed to be pretty cold, pretty warm. And I'm getting second thoughts that maybe I should have got an 18 because it's so nuts where I live, but I don't know. I really don't know. Some people say that the 18 is like for Alaska, you know. Um, but you see, people in Alaska have to run heat in their house at night. We don't. It's expensive. We don't do it. So, you know. So I use one of my older blankets that's 3, 4 years old now. I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years. I can't remember. And it's at least 3. And we've washed it a bunch of times. And when I bought it at the supermarket at first, it was really good. But after we washed it, it wasn't so good anymore. you know. So I was cold last night. I was pulling the thing up over my shoulders, and I tried putting another blanket on top of that the other night, and it just falls off. I might consider putting clothespins on it to keep them, but in a few days I'll have that new blanket, which I'm sure is going to be good. So I'm looking forward to that. See, this is what happens in Israel. The basics that you are used to, we don't have. Okay, like in America and probably in Canada, every house probably has gas heat. So you got the tank, and it's got like a thermostat in it. It's burning, LNG, and it's keeping the water at a certain temperature. So you go and you want to wash your hands, you turn the water on, right? And I don't know, 5 seconds later, you got warm water. 8 or 10 seconds later, you got hot water. Well, I turn the water on here like at night, and it's like you were ice fishing and put your hand in the water. I mean, it's freezing. If you keep your hand there, you probably get numb. I mean, it's really cold. And if you let the water run and run, and you got to pay for your water here, and run, and you had the electric heater on during the day, you might get warmish water where it's like cool, you know. It's really a hard place. There are very few houses in Israel that are set up like an American house. Some of the houses here are like Europe. In Europe, some countries, I know Norway is one, they wire the house for American electricity and the European 220 or 230, whatever they call it. And they're doing that a little bit in Israel. But there's so few houses, you could practically count them. I've not yet encountered a house with the gas, because the gas lines, like in America, there's a gas line into your house that they hook to the heater. But there is no such thing in Israel. Too many rockets and bombs would be dangerous, so they have tanks. So when your tank runs out, the guy may not come for 3 days, so you could forget hot water. It's not a real desirable situation. I knew somebody that had a jacuzzi for therapy, and this guy would buy like 8 tanks of gas at a time and heat the water up with that. It's a rough situation. So then I bought, I think it was 10 euros or 10 pounds, a hat. They rate these hats with the TOG rating. So this hat was rated at a 4.7, which is really high. I was using a Carhartt hat that was supposed to be one of their best, I think, and it was like a 1.4. So it didn't really keep you warm. Then when you buy the navy watch caps, the beanies, the blue wool, they're not so good. Even I used to get them as a kid in the old days. I think they were surplus and the real thing, and they were cold. They didn't do much good. They're one and a 1.4 on TOG. They don't work good. So then I bought some wool hats a few years ago from Germany. I figured they'd make a good one. Well, it's thick and all that, and better than the stuff you get in America for sure, but it wasn't that good. So it doesn't really get you that warm at night, but the 4.7 ought to do the job. Uh, you know, it's horrible living here like that. Um, it's great living here when you're in the fall and the spring because you're not too hot, you're not too cold, and the air smells good. You know, we don't have any major expressways near here. The buses are ecological. They don't have the stink and the smoke. It's rather quiet. It's really nice, but those months where you're in the blasting heat or you're in the damp cold, oh man. So, getting you guys ready, but I believe when we get to New Heaven, New Earth, we'll have real weather, good weather. So we're Wednesday, December 24th at 8:40 in the morning. I think this is punishment weather. When I read about the way they were walking around in the New Testament, it doesn't fit the way the weather was here. Now remember, they were walking around over there before 70 AD. 70 AD is when the boom dropped on them. They had their 40 years, roughly, I think it was 40 years, to repent, and they didn't. So then, boom. The trees weren't bearing good fruit, so they were cut down and thrown into the fire. Okay? That's what happened. So they weren't walking around in that weather, and, I don't believe Yeshua was sleeping outside. I mean, I saw Jerusalem get snow more than once. I saw waist-deep snow once. It just doesn't make any sense. And the people sitting around, like the Sermon on the Mount, that's near here by the Sea of Galilee. And, on a lot of days, you go over there and, it's 100 degrees. How long are you going to sit out there at 100 degrees? What are you going to drink for hydration? It doesn't make sense. It just wasn't that way. They were wearing sandals. They weren't wearing, Vibram-soled snow boots, Didn't make sense. None of it made sense. It's just stupid, It doesn't add up. I think that the weather got markedly worse. Probably happened gradually as a guess, but nonetheless it happened. And just terrible weather, And they wouldn't have been able to wear those tunic robe type things. They would have had to bundle up warmer and, you think the Romans walked around in the snow wearing sandals? Their toes would fall off. They had to have another way of doing it. Okay, let me take a look and make sure we got a live stream. So what I'm going to do today is very, very prophetic. I'm going to take current events and I'm going to apply them to prophecy. And this is what I'm doing more and more. So you're getting current events as it pertains to prophecy. I'm getting away more and more from, news like, oh, there was a battle in Gaza and 2 soldiers got killed and this commander, he got killed and there was so many, first of all, 98% of you don't know where these battles are in Gaza or, or the West Bank. And it's not that prophetically relevant and, So I'm trying to trim down a lot of that news that doesn't have much bearing. Now, the stuff that does have bearing, I do still report, but it's getting overwhelming reporting all that stuff with every different battle and every terrorist that got killed in Lebanon and Gaza and the West Bank. And, it's like, come on. I got to trim it down. It's knocking me out too much. Okay, let's go into the, make sure we got the live stream running, and then I'm going to start moving fast. Now, if you're getting buffering, put it up in the chat, make sure whatever you do. Running, and then I'm so, fast. Now, if you get it buffering, put it up. Okay. Thank you, moderators. Central USA, I know where that is. Thank you, moderator. All right. Okay, I'm going to put a post up rather quickly. Take seconds, I think. And then we'll get going. Okay. The reason I talk about that TOG system for heat for blankets and hats and things like that is in America and Israel, they cheat you. They give you blankets that you think are going to do the job and they don't. They look like they will and they don't. And these newer blankets are dirt cheap. Like, the best are maybe about $40, something like that. And I remember many years ago in America, I mean, decades ago, I went looking for a good warm quilt. Now, I had central heat, and I used to put the heat down over there to about 64, 65 at night. So I didn't have any need for, and it was Florida. You never got freezing temperature. So it was, you'd get 38 at night, stuff. And once in a while, you'd get under 32. Uh, and it was cold. I had a lot of sliding glass doors and, stuff like that. Well, one big one, actually. So it got cold in the house, but we had carpet. That makes a huge difference. And I had a central heat thing, so I turned it on. And I'd keep it in the 60s. And then if it was really cold and I was walking around awake, and I'd keep it at 69 or 68 or something, you know. So I found a store and had a sale on comforters, and they had some comforter that they were selling for about $700, and I got it for about 300. This one I had plenty of money, and it was a long time ago, like 25, 30 years ago. It's $300, and it wasn't that warm. It was thick, and it had a beautiful fabric on it. So when just put it on your bed, for decorations, it was really beautiful, but didn't get you that warm. So it's a horse of another color when you're running the heat at night. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, let's do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, we got people playing games. They don't learn their lesson. They keep trying to come back. So we just have to punish the unclean spirits harder. And we will right now in a minute. Okay, so B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my heavenly Father Jehovah, I bind all the unclean spirits from remaining in somebody who attempts to do any witchcraft, sorcery, spells, or enchantments directed at or targeting me, my household, anything I own, possess, or control, or set my hand to, and any other person or persons watching or listening to the live stream. Now, even if these people are not in the live stream and they're just doing it when the live stream is on, the unclean spirits have to leave them. And the unclean spirits have to leave every person in their house. And the unclean spirits shall never return to these people, nor shall any unclean spirit go in these people or guide them, lead them, direct them, give them advice, or help them in any matter for 1 year continuously, beginning right now. In addition, every time for the next year, any of these people try to do the witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments during the live stream, even if they're not watching the live stream or listening to the live stream or the video, not only will the unclean spirits have to come out from these people, but every single time the unclean spirits will have to come out from every person in the White House, in the Pentagon, in the NSA headquarters, and in the CIA headquarters, and depart from everybody in the governor's office in every state in America. And I submit this to you, my heavenly Father, to make sure it gets fulfilled, which I'm sure you will do. And I do this B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you're a real believer, even if it's a video. Now, that ought to keep them pretty well confused as to what to do. And if they still try to convince me it doesn't work and send new idiots back, then we'll expand it and we'll just keep walking on the unclean spirits. And believe me, there's a time when they will break. Okay? Satan doesn't like to give up. He keeps prisoners and holds them there because the prisoners can't do anything to him. We are not ignorant in his devices, and we can do things to him. We can tread over all the power of the unclean spirits. That's in Luke 10. And we do it. We just did it. And I'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it until I break the lousy bums. And I've been talking like this for many years. Look, here I am. How tough or powerful can the schmuck Satan and the moron unclean spirits be? And they're morons and idiots, but the people that follow them are bigger idiots and bigger morons, or they wouldn't follow them. All right. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Well, we got 3 tosses from requests. Okay, so I'm going to put them together in one big toss. And that's fine. Why not? Now I got to find it. I wrote it down. It's here. Let me get it. Okay, my heavenly Father Jehovah, I submit to you binding and loosing and demon tossing for the following people. And gotta look 1 second. I got one of them. I think I just want to double check it. Okay, got it. All right, so I'll start again, my Heavenly Father Jehovah. I'm going to submit to you a binding, loosing, and demon tossing for 3 people using their initials. And the initials are GB, Girl Bravo, JK, Jack Kilo, and BS, Bravo Sierra. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I command you, unclean spirits, to depart from all these people, as well as everyone who lives in the same house as them, as well as everyone that lives within 100 meters of them. Depart from all these people, never return unto any of them again. And I further command all you unclean spirits to not go into any of these people ever again for 1 year continuously. And I further command all you unclean spirits not to go in these people during that 1 year continuously, nor shall you appear to these people, help them, protect them, assist them, give them any advice. You cannot do it using any means of your disposable people or whatever. And you shall come out from every person who attempts to give them counsel, consolation, or advice for 1 year continuously. And when you come out of that person giving them the advice and so forth, you shall then not appear to that person, help that person, protect that person, guide that person for 1 year continuously as well. And during that time, no unclean spirit may go into those people. And that will continue as a daisy chain. Okay, so if they go to somebody, the same thing will happen. I further command you, unclean spirits, not to come within 500 meters of these people's houses or their cars. And when any of these people are out in public or in the street, in the mall, in the stores, restaurants, walking, driving, anyone that has an unclean spirit that comes within 25 feet of these people, the unclean spirit must immediately depart from these people without ever explaining to them why and what happened. Never explain it to them. Okay? And no unclean spirit can go into these people or appear to these people for 1 year continuously from the time of their demon leaving them. And no unclean spirit may go in these people's houses. And any person that communicates with these people in person, that communicates with the evil person, anyone who communicates with them or on the phone or the internet or in person, the unclean spirits will also depart from them, never to return again, and no unclean spirit can go into them or appear to them for 1 year continuously from the time of that event. And I know this is rather complex for us, my Heavenly Father, but it wouldn't be for you. And I submit all this to you, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and if you're a believer, you can agree with it. Okay, so you could also learn from it how to do it. So if you keep getting problems from these jackass dumbbells, Satan and the demons are mentally ill. Okay, they've been thrown out of heaven a long time ago. They're complete crackpots. Seriously, they don't make any sense. They have no logic. They're just idiots. Okay, but like there's crazy people that walk around the street. Okay. And they bother people, they harass people for spare change and sleep in the street, whatever, right? Now, when they see a policeman come in a uniform, they shape up. So they're essentially as crazy as you let them become. You understand? I used to work in law enforcement when I was a young guy, many, many years ago. So they shape up. If you see them and say, come here, hey, come here, I want to talk to you. They'll come over and you'll get like, yes, sir, and stuff like that, once, I was living in an apartment complex, and there was some workers there doing something for the complex. It had about 250 apartments. They were townhouses, and it had a swimming pool and a gym and things like that, right? So I'm standing there, then I'm out of law enforcement at this time, many years, like 25 years or 20 years or something, a long time. But they would spot me as a cop even that many years later, because it doesn't go away. Okay. So the crooks would spot me. All right. So I got in the habit of not carrying a concealed weapon exposed, like with a holster, and you put your shirt over it and you bend down and the thing sticks out. I didn't like people knowing I had a gun. So I got involved with different guns, Glocks, the smaller Glocks, the mid-size, and the 5, 6 shot revolvers. And I used to keep them in my front pocket. I used to go take my jeans to this, what do you call them, the tailor, and they would put a heavy canvas fabric inside my pockets and put another 3 or 4 inches on the pocket. And that way I was able to put a gun in there if it was a Glock, which I don't care what Glock says, they have no safety. I would put it in a holster, a pocket holster. So I had Ken Ahern was the guy that made the good ones. He could be gone by now. I don't know. It was leather, and when you pulled the gun out, the holster didn't come with it, right? The holster stayed in there. So I used to keep it in my front pocket, okay? Uh, because it wouldn't print. You couldn't see it. If a cop looked at you, he couldn't see it, because I used to look at it in the mirror and I couldn't see it. You can't see it. They might touch you and then they'll know it's there. They'll feel it. A wise guy cop that's got a lot of time on the street, when he's talking to you, he might brush by it. If he senses something's there, he doesn't know what it is, he might brush it with his hand. Then he'll know. But I had a friend that was a deputy sheriff in, what was it, Westchester or Yonkers or something, right next to New York City. And he would be able to do that. He could brush against you and tell that you had a gun. Okay. He also used to teach gun stripping to the cops. In other words, that's how they take the gun away. So, he'd hold the gun up and he'd tell you, okay, what do you want me to do? Where's my wife standing so I don't shoot? And, well, you would point the gun in, and he could get the gun away from you. And he was really impressed with that. Now, he was a martial artist, and so was I. And he was actually a very good martial artist. He had a school, he taught jujitsu. He knew what he was doing. So he had a black belt in karate and a second degree in jujitsu. He knew how to fight, believe me, he knew how to fight. And he had plenty of experience. So he was doing that, I was holding the gun out like this, and then I put this hand out and I put the gun in on my hip. And then he said, yeah, well, they don't do that. You do it, You can't take the gun away from someone. If you hold it in on your hip, you don't stick it out at all. It's pressed against your body. Now, you don't put the barrel opening on your body, but you hold it in, and then you put another hand out in front of you in case he's going to try to do something. At least you got a hand. You could shove him away and then shoot him, Now, if you're going to shove him away and shoot him, you better make sure you shove and pull the hand back and don't shoot yourself. Okay. So anyway, this guy was a little bit crazy. He was a street criminal. He'd probably been in jail 8 or 10 times. He starts climbing up the drain pipe I was on the second floor coming up because it was a beautiful day in Florida. It was springtime, and I had the sliding door open to the balcony. So I wanted the fresh air in the house. I worked on the internet, so I liked the fresh air, and So I hear noise on the balcony. I said, "What the heck is this?" So I walked out on the balcony, and I had my right hand inside my right front pocket where I had my Glock. So I wasn't very worried what I was going to go out to the balcony and see, because I was going to kill it if I didn't like it. I don't know what it was. So I get out there, and he sees me, and he looks at me, and I say, "What are you doing?" By that point, he knew he pinned me for being a cop. I was no longer a cop, but he pinned me for being a cop. He knew I had a gun in my front pocket. The son of a gun knew. So he was giving me some bogus story, So I was thinking, should I let him walk through the house? And I said no, because if he tries something and I kill him, then I'm going to have a lot of trouble. I didn't want him walking through the house. I just didn't want to have that. So he shimmied down the drain pipe, and then he was standing there down, looking up at the balcony, talking to me. He didn't want to run away because he knew that I might shoot him or run after him or something. So he just went away. Then I had another time where some guy came around selling furniture in the community I was living in. This is a gated community with a golf course, a full golf course, and a golf club, and swimming pool, and a restaurant, and it was on the lake, on the water actually, that fed to the Gulf of Mexico, and Gulf of America. I'm sorry. And he comes around. So he rings the bell. So I normally would keep a gun in my pocket all the time because, you got people will come around and they'll home invade you. They won't, kick your door in. They'll get you to open the door, and then boom, they got a gun in your face. And they're going to work fast. Once the gun's out, before you can, the other inmates in the jail train them. Before you can, come up with a plan and recover, they're shoving you in the house, lay down, blah, 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 and they might search you. They might not search you, it depends. So, it's a lot nicer to go to the door with your hand on your gun in your pocket, especially I'm alone in the house. It was an elite neighborhood, So then all I got to do with my hands in the pocket, I would say under a second. And I'm going to be at, point blank range. So, open up the door, and the guy he looks at me, and then he starts backing up. You see, now that's not a normal person reaction. The only person that would do that is an ex-con. Okay? I'm telling you, that's ex-con behavior. He's backing up, and, he pinned me for having a gun. So he wasn't just concerned with, hey, what can I sell this guy? Let me look in his house and see, maybe I can give him an easy chair, a sofa, or a table. That would be the real mindset of somebody. Now, he really was selling furniture, it turns out. But maybe it was stolen furniture. I don't know what the heck it was. So he backed up, and he couldn't back up far enough and get out of there. I said, no, I'm not interested. He was so happy to just get out of there. So I picked up the phone. I called the local PD. I knew some of those guys. I said, hey, you got a problem here. This guy's running around there was 2 trucks full of furniture, knocking on doors, selling furniture. He says, you go, where? I said, well, down here. I described where in the community it was, because it was, I don't know, maybe 100 houses or something, or 70, I don't know, it's quite a few. So, boom, like 2 or 3 minutes later, there's a patrol car there with the light going, right? And they pulled him over. The guy had to know I did it, And then I got feedback from the guy. They knew I used to be a cop, and they, said, "What the heck is this crap? He's going in the community, and he's selling stuff. There's a sign, no peddlers. Where the heck does he get the furniture from?" So these guys didn't bother. These cops didn't bother running the furniture down to see where it came from. It was probably stolen. They looked like they were just a bunch of ex-cons, and you know. He didn't care. He just wanted them out of his city, and he got rid of them, and they never came back. That's rather bad police work, though. All right, let's jump in. So Trump lied. He said he was never on Epstein's plane. They just released documents, the Democrats, I'm sure, after threatening that Bondi attorney general. And it turns out that Trump was on Epstein's plane 8 times in 2 years, I think, or maybe a third year. 8 times. So he was going to Sicko Abomination Island that Epstein had 8 times. Obama was a freak with Big Mike. And I'm telling you, so was Biden and so was Trump. Not everybody's going to believe me. I'm well aware of that. Okay. We're into the 12th month of the year. We got into the year about the 12th month. We got into it 2-3 days ago. Okay. I put it up on my Telegram. All right. Venezuela, the honeypot, snare on America. Why is it a honeypot? Venezuela has more oil reserves, crude oil, than Saudi Arabia, which is number 2. Venezuela is number 1 in the whole world for oil reserves. Trump subscribes to the belief that he who dies with the most toys wins. Okay? I told you that people that serve the unclean spirits very much behave like children. Some of you will understand that, some of you won't. All right? So, he is not going to let go till he gets that. His alibi is, what's that jerk's name? Chavez, I think. Hugo Chavez was down there, and he kind of revolutionary, and he took the oil away from the American oil companies like Chevron and took the land they had, and he just appropriated it for the state. And Trump wants to see them get the land back. I'm sure they'll be most graciously appreciative of Trump doing that. But Trump's all about the oil. Okay, you gotta understand that. So what we got now, there was in the last week more troop movements in Puerto Rico, deploying more soldiers to the area. By soldiers, we can mean Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines. They're up to 15,000 Now, that's not a lot. To invade and occupy a country, what the war colleges of probably any nation is going to tell you is that you take the size of the military of the country you're going to invade and occupy, and you multiply it by 3. So you need about 3 times as many soldiers to occupy, invade, and occupy. Now, invade, to run in there and blow stuff up and run away, you probably don't need that much. Now, it might be even higher for Venezuela because it has a lot of jungles, and Chavez, Maduro, has been talking about putting soldiers in the jungle and then having them come out and attack and then go hide back in the jungle. If Trump had to get the oil, he'd put Agent Orange back in their jungles. I think he would. He'd probably call it by another name and say it's not harmful or something to that effect. He is a liar. Look at the Epstein thing. Now, Trump is taking advantage of Israel, as I covered the other day. And I think because of the timing and the coinciding with what he's doing to Israel with the Epstein thing, I think the Epstein thing may undo Trump. Trump doesn't seem to be that evil to Israel, but I think Vance would be so. I'm rather sure Vance would be worse than Trump to Israel. Okay? And he's another freak too, although he's a good one. Doesn't look like it, he is. So that's your snare, Jeremiah 50, verse 24. I will read the verse to you because it's an important verse. It's a very key verse. Now, I'm opening your eyes up to see things that even the top Satan bots of the world don't see. You're getting things that you're not going to get anywhere else. And they won't make sense to you unless you're a real believer. You might get some sense out of it, I don't know. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord by keeping Israel from Gaza, turning it into Trump casino resorts and crap like that. Yeah, he's mocking God, and he's using Israel to be the bulldog, and then he's going to keep the land. And then he's also making Israel spend billions of dollars to remove the rubbish. Billions and billions and billions. What a nice joke. Hey, I got them Jews to pay to excavate the debris out of Trump casino and resorts, he's proud of that. So the Epstein thing is so fitting because it's going to embarrass him. And I sincerely hope it embarrasses him in a way that people know that he's another version of Obama and Big Mike, which he is. And I hope that people understand that. And that will be a ridicule of him. Okay? A mockery, like he's doing to Israel and God. And the timing just adds up real nice, too. The Democrats are dead bent on getting all the dirt out they can on our boy Trump. And he's losing the battle. He had them take down some pictures of him with Epstein a few days ago, and then people said, what happened to these pictures? They were at the Justice Department site, I believe, and then all of a sudden they appeared again. He's trying cover-ups. He's scared. When he's trying cover-ups, he's not just laughing at, this is nothing. No, he's scared. He knows they're gunning to impeach him, and they will. And they might get it. Maybe not. Maybe so. Now, remember, an impeachment does not get anybody sent to jail or any fines or anything. The only thing an impeachment does is throws you out of the office. Now, I don't know what Vance's policy would be if Trump's gone on the oil in Venezuela. I don't know if he's so obsessed with that or not. I don't have any idea. I don't know how he would react to it. My guess is the people that pull the strings would want that oil. Now we need to talk about the snare. So let's use some numbers. And we'll go with the Common War College version of 3-1 to occupy and invade. And, get it straight. To get the oil in their land, he's got to occupy and invade. Just bombing the drug cartels, or even bombing, the military or whatever, isn't going to help. To get the oil, he's got to be there and overthrow the government, So let's get into the numbers on this. So the honeypot snare is not Epstein. The honeypot snare is Venezuela. What's going on here? I don't know. All right. So what it looks like to me Trump's going to start in with is first the siege or the embargo. He'll close the airspace to, he already has at times closed the airspace for Venezuela, and that stops deliveries and shipments by air and also by sea. Okay? Then the next step is he's going to do limited attacks on the drug cartels. Then that will enhance and probably be attacks on the military and Maduro. Okay. We yet do not know if Maduro has any weapons that could reach America, missiles. We don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We'll find out. And I'm telling you, it might be that his missiles are the ones that hit Washington, D.C. It could also be the Lord with fire and brimstone, for instance. It could also be Maduro. I don't know. I'll be right back. Now we know Maduro is getting advice from Iran, China, and Russia. And they're helping him. They're admitting, basically, helping him defensively, but they could also be helping offensively. Maduro is certainly not cracking. China, Iran, and Russia don't want Trump to get that oil. So we don't know how that's going to play. But Maduro has 123,000 trained soldiers, and Maduro has 8,000 trained reservists. Now, he's got more, that are people that got a week of training or some stupid thing like that. That doesn't mean anything. They're not a polished military unit. They'll run away. They'll surrender. They'll just take their uniform off and go home. But he's got 131,000 real soldiers. Okay. Now there's police also, whatever that's worth. But the police don't have the equipment, He's got jets. He's got tanks. He's got naval vessels. He's got missile defense systems that we know about. He's not so inadequate. So it would take 400,000 soldiers to invade and occupy Venezuela. But when you apply the jungles and the jungle warfare, I think it's safe to say 500,000. And if Colombia joins in, or other countries like Bolivia or something, I think then you're going to go up to 750,000. I don't think there's going to be any countries helping America. Trump certainly doesn't want to share the oil with them. Now, look how far Trump went with the tariffs, putting tariffs on everybody and all of that, right? This thing with Venezuelan oil is huge. The American oil companies could get in there within months, maybe 6 months, a year, and probably easily knock off 3 or 4 million barrels a day, if not 5. Given a year and a half, it might be able to get 7 or 8 million. It may get up to 10 million barrels a day. That's going to bring all kinds of money into America. And combining it with the tariffs and protecting himself from BRICS against Iran and Russia and the UAE and Saudi Arabia, it's a tremendous opportunity. BRICS is after the life of America. They want to kill America. They want to kill America economically. Look, if you don't have money, you don't get food, you die. So, Trump is probably taking the bait. Although Trump may not be with us very long over this Epstein thing. From the time they have incriminating evidence against him and Epstein, and impeach him, I would say minimum 6 months, maybe 4, not so fast. What happens if he gets pardoned by himself? We've talked about that. We think it's real. If the Constitution does not say you cannot do it, you can do it. So Trump could just pardon himself, then what? Well, they could still go to impeach him anyway. The pardoning is not going to stop an impeachment. The pardoning is going to stop a criminal action. This guy, Trump, is not walking away from that oil. And if Colombia wants to act stupid, he'll attack Colombia too. Now you're talking 1 million military at least. It's a start for Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, Belarus to get rid of America. Because it's a substantial amount of troops in Venezuela. Now, Trump keeps a substantial amount of troops in the Middle East and Europe. Then add in troops in Asia Pacific. And you're going to come up with about half of American troops stationed in these places. And then you got to add in some that are stationed in South and Central America, Africa, not a lot. So you're probably going to hit half American strength. You got to count Hawaii with Asia Pacific. So you got a large amount of troops abroad, a large amount of Navy vessels, aircraft, other stuff abroad. Now, the enemies of America can go a couple of different ways. They could stir the pot up in Europe and easily get Trump's numbers to be 100, 150,000 with NATO, right? Light up Taiwan and Japan with a lot of pressure from North Korea and missile launches hitting the Sea of Japan, and also presenting threats to South Korea and China and all that. So they're going to draw down more soldiers if they want to, but then they're also occupied. now they got America weak, and they could attack America. Let's use the 3-1, the three military for every one military to invade and occupy, which is what they do in Jeremiah 50:51, although the occupation is rather short-lived. But it is an occupation. So America has, let's say, 1.5 million soldiers. So if you take the 3-1 rule, you got 4.5 million military, which is just too many. But if you get half of America otherwise occupied, then you're only going to need about 2 million. But they got easily that with sleeper agents. So they start the show with sleeper agents. And then they back it up, these other countries, with their military, flying in and coming in by boat. And they just destroy America. And that's as depicted in Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47. Daughter of Babylon. They actually have enough sleeper agents to fulfill all the 3-1 soldiers they need. So they got it. And since the soldiers are coming from within the borders, there is no protecting the borders. They're already inside. It's rather easy to see this happening. The sleeper agents attacked the Texas military base twice in the same night already and got away with it, never got caught. They've flown balloons that could start fires and stuff over America. Massive amounts of drones they flew over. They're practiced up. What they have to do is break into the American bases and take them over. That's it. All right. So I think that we're seeing this stuff start to come to pass. And I think Trump's going to get bounced. Trump could go to jail over this Epstein stuff too, but whether or not that happens is not highly relevant. If he's out of office, that's highly relevant. That's all. All right. Now let's talk about Jews wanting to come to Israel. Let's go kick around a few countries and talk about things. Let's start with the UK. The UK Jews are losing faith in their future in the UK. 96% feel less safe since October 7th. That's just about all of them, okay? The 4% could be cops and government workers, insane people, I don't know. Okay. 59% hide Jewish identity out of fear. Well, they're worried about having to put a yellow Jewish star on and somebody say, hey, Juden, you know? Okay, 61% have considered leaving the UK. That's how it starts, right? You think about it. You don't get up one morning, you wake up at 7, and by 7:15 you say, I'm going to Israel right now and pack. You would do that if they were shooting your friends and neighbors, yeah, but, okay. 93% say the government isn't doing enough. Well, sure. That's 93%. Only 10% trust the courts to protect them. How about that? They're right. A powerful new survey by Campaign Against Anti-Semitism this survey paints a bleak picture using anti-Semitism, failed leadership, and a Jewish community questioning its place in British society. That's your ingredients, kids. See, when Hitler happened, nobody had seen what Hitler did and said, oh, this is just like Hitler. No, this was the virgin attempt, that the first time the Hitlerites did it. But now they know it and they see it coming back again. They see the Muslims reading Mein Kampf, All right. So they see history repeating. So we're getting it from the UK. I'll give you a count of Jews from the UK in a little bit. They're very nervous. They're very scared. They got a Muslim problem. Some of the people there are standing up to the goofball politicians and to the Muslims. Some of them, I believe, are hunting the Muslim gangs in the street, and they'll engage them in fights. And these people go back from when Ireland was fighting Great Britain, and they were used to fighting a very sophisticated enemy, Great Britain. These muzzy, sleeper agents and stuff like that are not anywhere near as much of an enemy as Great Britain was. And these people are vicious. And when the time comes, they'll start blowing the Muslims up into little pieces. And they know how to do it. And they got weapons. They probably got their weapons buried in plastic bags inside plastic cases in the ground somewhere. And they don't have any problems shooting and killing the Muslims. And, the problem will be when the police come and try to arrest them for doing that, they'll kill the police. Of course, the police are on the side of the Muslims as they see it. The mayor of New York City, that anti-Semitic, anti-Israel jackass, some of the things that this idiot's going to do. Let's talk about policing of protests near synagogues in New York City. They have 900, so almost 1 million Jews in New York City. That's huge, by the way, okay? That's leaving America and Israel out of it. There's more Jews in New York City than anywhere in the world. Again, leaving America and Israel out of it. Okay, so they hit Israel in a bad way. Okay, policing of protests near synagogues in Jewish areas. This Mandani jackass has pledged to disband the NYPD Strategic Response Group, SRG, a unit often deployed at major protests. If he takes these cops away, the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protesters are going to destroy the synagogues. How's Trump going to stop that? He can't. He'll start investigations that this was done on purpose, but he'll never get anywhere with them because Mandani got lawyers too. So not going to work. So he's going to make it that the synagogues are going to have to close. Or they'll have to get their own private security, and then he'll have his cops go over there and make it rather apparent to the private security that if they do anything to the Muslims, they're going to go to jail and get tried for crimes. And that's how these things work. Okay? So he's definitely going after the Jews. There's just not much to talk about. It's obvious. The other things this idiot's talking about doing, so he's basically going to let the protesters do what they want. He knows the Jews aren't going to sit there and start protesting and storming the mosques and destroying them. So he's happy about this. Yeshivas, homophobic. No, I'm sorry. Yeshivas and their private schools, Jewish institutions, basically, he's indicated opposition to punishment as cutting funds, and said the focus should be on compliance with state education standards relevant to ongoing debates affecting some yeshiva See, they don't follow the state curriculum right. They're not going to teach correctly according to the state laws on the gays, LGBTQ for starters. And that'll cost them their funding right there. Okay? So I'm just giving you just one example. Teaching the students about Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, how God created the earth and all that stuff, and portraying the God as Jehovah, that'll cost them their funding as well, and many other things. Okay? Is that going to encourage these people to go to Israel? Because they don't want to hear their kids going to school in yeshiva and having some trannies come in and read first graders' stories? You get it? Okay. There's something called New York City Israel Economic Council. This mayor-elect he comes into office January 1, by the way, a few days. He has said he would end the New York City Israel Economic Council, created under Adams, the existing mayor, to foster business ties. So he doesn't want New York City doing any business with Israel. And I'm sure lots of business is going to flow to the Muslims. Israel Day on the fifth parade, Israel Day. There's something wrong with the way that's worded. Then this man Danny says he would not march through. He would not march, even though he has also said he would still provide permits and security for the event. Yeah, but he's taken his security, his anti-riot cops away, so they'll have an event like that and they'll get overrun with Muslims. And he'll say, what, me worry? Israel bonds. The city, he has supported permanently divesting itself from Israeli bonds. Okay, so he's going to stop buying Israel bonds. That's going to make the Jews nervous. Obviously, they should be nervous. Concerns within parts of New York City, large Jewish community. Okay, no, we covered that already. Mandani's long-standing sharp criticisms of Israel These have included accusations of genocide. That's complete cock and bull story. So he hates Israel. And apartheid, another cock and bull story. He hates Israel. The Arabs get treated better than the Jews overall here. In its conduct during the Gaza war. Okay, support for the boycott. Divestment and sanctions, BDS is the sanctions movement that's against Israel, so they don't buy things made in the West Bank or anything like that. Refusal to affirm he refuses to affirm Israel's right to exist. He doesn't think Israel has a right to exist. And especially as a Jewish state. He's advocating instead for a state with equal rights for all. Well, technically, if you're not a terrorist and you're an Arab Muslim in Israel, you've got equal rights. You can vote and stuff like that. But you don't have to go in the army either. You see, they got more rights than Israelis. They got better taxes and stuff. It's stupid. Post wait a minute. He has in the past been associated with phrases or activism seen by critics as anti-Zionist or potentially enabling anti-Semitism. Some rabbis and leaders, Jewish leaders, including over 1,100 signatories to an open letter the rabbis and some of these other people that are pro-Zionism, pro-Jewish, described him as posing a danger to Jewish security organization like the American Jewish Committee, AJC, and the Anti-Defamation League have expressed fears that his views could contribute to using anti-Semitism Okay. I'm reading all this stuff, so I got to pull it out. I don't want to read every word. There also the rabbis and the others are worried about public safety for Jewish institutions. Well, we discussed them overrunning the synagogues and stuff like that. Potential policies targeting Israel, divestment, and incidents like protests outside synagogues that critics link to a permissive environment of beating up Jews. Yeah, absolutely. with no problems coming at these people from the police. Police will be ignoring the Jews because the mayor runs the police. These concerns were amplified during the campaign, with some Jewish leaders and voters feeling his positions are fundamentally at odds with mainstream community values on Israel and Zionism. Exit polls showed Jewish voters largely supported his opponents. Now let's talk. So that's obviously going to drive the Jews out of New York, and they might not believe in, okay, let's go to Yonkers or Westchester or something like that, or Long Island. We're away from Mandy. Some may think that way, but I think a lot of them are going to say, let's go to Israel. Okay, Belgium joins South Africa in a genocide case against Israel. So let's understand Belgium and South Africa. The Jews there are being made very uncomfortable. We all know Israel didn't go genociding them. They genocided us. Belgium has approximately 29,000 self-identified Jews. These are Jews that will admit or state they're Jewish. There's plenty of others that will never state it. They change their name and never go near a synagogue and all of that stuff. In 2025, JPR reports with an enlarged population around 46,000, including those eligible under Israel's law of return. Australia has 117,000 Jews. Now, after the Bondi Beach massacre with 16 dead and, 40 wounded, it's obvious that the people in Australia are very, very insecure about being there and want to be out. And I would say next door neighbor New Zealand is in the same boat with the Jews there, okay? So I'm running the numbers up for you now. Now this is important. You got to pay attention to it. I'm going to tie to Zechariah 12 in a minute. New York City has 955,000 Jews in 2023. Let's just call it 1 million, okay? South Africa is running at about 50,000 Jews. I'm very sorry for them to be there. We have some family that's there. I never saw them. My uncle, who's deceased, went to see them once in the 60s, I think, maybe the 70s. I think it was in the 60s. They had a shoe factory. They made shoes there. I don't know much about it, but that's all I know. They're not really very well connected with the rest of the family. They're very nervous about being there. The Jews there are white, of course, and they're having their property taken away as farmers because they're white, and that's one of their problems is being white in South Africa. The second problem is being a Jew in South Africa. South Africa hates Israel and the Jews. Spain, approximately 13,000 Jews are according to the World Jewish Congress and JPR living there. So it's not a large amount of Jews anymore. I would say if you rolled the clock back 50 years, it was probably quadruple or something. Now they say this is scary. Wikipedia, Delia Pergola estimates, and JPR reports around, it's about 300,000, depending on adjustments for undercounting. So there could be that many there. Maybe they're still there. I don't know. I don't know much about it. But back in the 50s and 60s, probably the 70s, it was still flourishing. It got bad there in the 80s. By the late 80s, it was pretty terrible there. The people there lived a good life. They had a lot of mining of minerals and stuff like that, and they had a lot of agriculture. So the people that went to school there weren't studying, politics or art or, Elizabethan literature. They were studying mining and agriculture. And they also studied engineering, and they'd study medicine and architecture, things like that. They weren't studying the stupid stuff. They were studying stuff that would enable the country to be more economically sound. And they were. There a lot were Dutch. Did they discriminate against the black people there heavily? Absolutely. That was their mistake. They shouldn't have bore down on it that hard. They went too far. Spain, approximately 13,000 hardcore Jews. United Kingdom, approximately 312,000. But they were also reporting that, yeah, it's about that. It's about 312,000. That's what they're coming up with. France, 440,000. Now, what you got to remember is Zechariah 12. I will read. Talks about a lot of believers in Jerusalem. Now, let me find it. Now, I want to do this verse in another translation in English. It's Zechariah 12:5. I'll be getting there in a minute. I gotta advance. Okay, let me go back and do this better. It's quicker. Okay, now I'll get it. And the princes of Judah this is the judges of Judah, will say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are strength to me. No, no, no. In Jehovah of hosts, their God. All right, let's just understand. It's if we're going to go along with this, okay, it's strength to the two witnesses. I don't think it's that. It's the strength to the people, the Jews. But anyway, my point is, inhabitants of Jerusalem are having belief, thus strength in Jehovah, their God. So there is now a lot of believers in Jerusalem. Now, would he say that to the like Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox Jews that do the Talmud and the Kabbalah and all that? No, their strength's not in Jehovah. Their strength is, somewhere else, okay? So, no, it's real believers. You can't be calling Yeshua a liar and Jehovah a liar pretending to Yeshua and getting you strength. Yeah, that doesn't work that way. So, there are not a lot of believers in Jerusalem right now. There's maybe 3 or 4 Messianic congregations, which are churches, and they have another gospel and they're screwed up. They have divisions, seditions with the Messianic umbrella organizations, and they're wrong. One of them is actually part of the Assemblies of God Canada. The other one is part of the Baptist Church. So, I mean, come on. It's nonsense. Let's wake up. It's just nonsense. That's all there is to it. Now, to take people, aliyah is a Hebrew word. It means to go up. Okay? Coming to Israel is called aliyah because you're moving up. You're elevating your status. And is that biblical? It is, because Jehovah says, where he accepts you is in Israel. More than once. In Israel is where he accepts you. So yes, that's the correct thing they're doing. Okay, that word isn't exactly used, but okay, accept is. When they come to Israel, this is normally what happens. If they're coming from a poor country, Russia, Ethiopia, the National Jewish Fund, I don't know, one of the big rich organizations for Jews will pay for them to send their container of possessions over here. A 40-footer, I'm not so sure about. Depends on the size of the family, I suppose. It would be either a 20 or 26 foot or a 40, I don't know. They pay for it to get sent over here. When it comes here, you don't have to pay any tariffs on it because you made aliyah. Now, if you were a non-Jew and just moving here to work for a few years and you brought all these possessions over here, they'd probably tax it. Or they might have you make a down payment tax, and if you leave, you got to prove it's leaving with you. But I don't think they would ever go through with that. I never heard that. So the best way to come to Israel would be to bring 13 suitcases. and or 8 or whatever you need, and then buy furniture. Because they wouldn't tax your suitcases. You might have to pay an extra baggage fee per suitcase, but the government wouldn't tax it. Okay, so you get paid a stipend like unemployment insurance level. So you get money to live on. If you're coming from a poor place like Ukraine, Russia, you would get all kinds of money thrown at you. And that lasts about a year. It might extend for 2 years. You would go to the Ulpan, which is the language school, which is crap. Netanyahu made them crap. They don't teach the same Hebrew that people talk in the street anymore. He's such a bad abomination. It used to be they did. Okay? And you go to school Sunday to Friday. Friday's a half day. And they take you once a week or once every other week. It can vary, on field trips to Israel, and they teach you about Israel. That does not mean they're going to take you and teach you just about rabbinical Talmudic Israel. They'll do that, unfortunately, but they'll teach you many things. They'll show you the beaches. They might take you to the zoo in Jerusalem. They might take you to some of the architectural digs in Jerusalem. They probably take you to some of them anyway. And they might take you up by the border by Gaza and up by the border by Syria and Lebanon. Take you to different cities that are like secular and a lot of things. They take you to museums, and there's a lot of things they can do. Okay, well, they take you around. A lot of it is architecture. You know, they show you they take you and show you old Roman ruins. They might take you, to different places in the Bible where battles were fought and stuff like that. All right. So they pay for that as a new immigrant, okay? But with Netanyahu, if you flunk out of Ulpan, they could send you back to Russia. Well, they don't exactly send you back to Russia. They just cut your benefits off. That's evil. It used to be if you flunked out of Ulpan, you just enrolled again. That's all, for free. Nothing happened. Maybe you had to go talk to somebody about why you left, but they'd still give you your benefits. They gave people a cash benefit. They called it a basket of currency. So a lot of the Russians came here, and grandma and grandpa came with mommy and daddy and the kids. Mommy and daddy worked. From Russia, frequently mommy and daddy had graduate degrees and stuff. But anyway, they worked. They got taken advantage of, got paid less, but they worked. They would go to Ulpan, usually Ulpan Aleph and Ulpan Bet. That's 1 and 2. So by the time they finished both Ulpans, they probably spoke Hebrew like a kid in high school, a junior or a senior in high school, something like that. Okay? There's about 5 levels of Ulpan, but probably 75% go to the first level, that's it. Maybe 15% go to the second level. And then the third and the fourth, those are people that are like, they're going to be pharmacists, they're going to be medical doctors, they're going to be a psychologist, or they're going to be a graduate engineer working in the hard sciences. They might take it to the third, or a lawyer, they might take it to the third or fourth level. And I think really the fourth and fifth level are going to be people that are like academics. Like they got a PhD and they used to teach in their home country or something. Very few people do it. Okay. Ulpan 1 and Ulpan 2 is really about it. And then they have brief Ulpans where you get business terminology. Okay. like they'll teach you what ROI is in Hebrew, return on investment, and how you talk about interest rates and, secured loan versus unsecured in Hebrew, stuff like that. It's a few weeks, a month, maybe 6 weeks. They have another one with medical terminology. Then they have one with science terminology, physics and chemistry and, square root and, things like that, Mathematics would be included in that. Okay, Netanyahu got rid of most of this stuff. He's so bad. So they get that, and then they would get a basket of currency. So when you had the scenario, grandma and grandpa came and mommy and daddy came with the two kids, they would lump their basket of currencies together and buy a new car, a new Fiat or something. And that infuriated the Israelis. They didn't like that. In addition to that, we're talking right after Russia, the USSR collapsed, and they were being run by the mafia for a number of years, probably till about 95, 97, 98, something like that. And they were even being very screwed up in the year 2002, 2003. They were very screwed up still. So the mafia was running it, and the government of Israel, when the USSR fell, gave the Russians the apartment they lived in that paid rent to the state. Boom, it's your apartment. So what they did to come to Israel is they sold their apartments. And they did it through the mafia. They arranged the mafia to do the sale, and the mafia would pay them back in Israel under the table. So they wouldn't have to pay the tax or anything like that. And the government wouldn't know they had the money. So somebody would come, let's say it was $50,000. They'd come every month and give them $5,000 or $10,000 until it was paid off in cash, and they would just use the money. So they were buying new cars, and then they had all this other money, and the Israelis got mad about this because they had more money saved up than the Israelis did. $50,000 back then was enough money to cash out a house, literally, in the, up by the Lebanon border, for instance, or something like that, not Jerusalem. But they could cash a house out. So they got the money for the car, they cashed out the car. They got the money for the house, they cashed out the house. So they needed furniture, they were working. They needed food. Food was cheap back then. It was nothing. We never worried about the price of food, never. Rents were cheap, never worried. I think I paid $450 a month for a 4-bedroom with a view of the Galilee in Tiberias. I think it was $450 I paid, something like that. Not a lot of money. So that's what went on. And they got health insurance for free right away. And they had handout stores. The Jewish people all around the world were contributing things to help the Russian Jews that came here. So they had warehouses that would open maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And they were getting containers full of clothing from around the world that people were giving to the poor Jews that came from Russia. Now, this they was not only used clothing, a lot of it was just brand new stuff. They didn't only give clothing, they gave toys for the children. And you had, to some extent, books and things like that. There was not much of any kind of internet back then in Israel. And they had what they called pirate cable. It was sort of illegal cable TV they would sell to people. But I don't think the Russians bought it because it wasn't in Russian. All right, so they did pretty good, and the Israelis didn't like it. And they picked on them, and they discriminated against them. At the same time, the Ethiopians came here, and that was horrible what they did. The kids would beat the Ethiopians up and pick on them, and nobody wanted to hire them. They were really had it bad, really had it bad. And to this day, I think they get heavily discriminated against. A lot of them go work for the government. They go in the military, they get in the border police. They seem to do okay there. They don't make a lot of money. The only way you make any significant money in Israel in the military is to be an officer, and they're generally not officers. But if you go in and you're 18 years old, and 10 years later you're 28 years old, which is still young, now your paycheck is pretty serious because you got 10 years on the job and you're probably going to be a commander, like a sergeant or something, right? So you're going to make a decent living. And then another 10 years, you're making a good living. And then you could go another 10 years and get yourself a nice pension and, retire, your retirement is valid, you get the same kind of retirement as someone else, but it's based on how much money you earn. So they got a lot of benefits and stuff. They do okay. So the government also did things like it paid the kibbutz's money, and they called it First Home in Israel. And you went to the kibbutz, and the kibbutz itself ran the Ulpan, because a lot of people in Israel, becoming a teacher in Israel is probably 3 times more respected than in America. So they understand that they got to educate the youth or they're going to fall apart. So the kibbutz would run the Ulpan, and the government would pay them. They had teachers that knew how to do Ulpan. They would teach them. And the way they do the Ulpan is weird, man, but it works. It's like they teach you like a parrot, You just say this stuff, like Manashmad, and they reflexively say, call Beseda. So Manashmad, how are you? How are things going? Call Beseda, all's well, stuff like this. So they get reflexive, and then it builds and grows, and they teach them the economics, and they teach them the culture of Israel, and I don't think Netanyahu does that anymore. They want them to stick out like a sore thumb with that piece of garbage, Netanyahu. All right, so the only sad thing here with Epstein is, why couldn't Netanyahu have gone there 15 times or something like that? I think he wasn't in that loop because he lived in the Middle East. All right. So they got all kinds of. So the people at the kibbutz would go to the Ulpan in the morning. They probably got there at 8, and they knocked off at 12. They ate lunch, and then they went to work in the afternoon for a few hours to help the kibbutz make money. And everybody liked the new immigrants. Everybody loved them. Now they hate the new immigrants. They cheat them. They discriminate against them, everything. They do everything. They don't want any people coming to Israel. They picked this up from Netanyahu and Satan. And that has got God angry at them. Believe me, they got to come to Israel. Their parents or grandparents got to come, and they got their houses for next to nothing. Or they joined the kibbutz and they didn't have to pay anything. Or a mashav or something. And they want to pick on you, discriminate against you, have you rent their houses, because when houses were cheap, they bought 2 or 3 of them. And they want the tenants to make all the repairs, and the tenants to pay their property tax and all the other 2-bit crackhead things that Netanyahu has the people psyched up to do. And, this is crackhead. I mean, idiot things. They don't take crack, idiot things, you know. So it looks like they are going to start taking Jews. Now, it may require getting Netanyahu thrown out of office. The best thing that could happen to Israel is Netanyahu gets thrown out of office. Netanyahu is a curse on Israel. That's all he is. That's his job. Take their nose and hold it to the grindstone. That's his job. Make it horrible in Israel. So they keep leaving and they don't go back. And there's no tourism here because of all the wars. I mean, I don't have the words for him. Okay? He's like a low-life worm crawling through the manure. He's just terrible. Okay, so this all requires money. You got to give plane tickets to the poor Jews to move here. Now, from Argentina, from the UK, from France, from Germany, they're not going to buy them plane tickets and they're not going to pay for their container. They'll give them basic unemployment insurance so they can buy food and stuff. They'll pay for the Ulpan, stuff like that. They'll give them the medical right away. I think they don't have to pay for the medical the first 6 months or the first year. It's free. And, stuff like that. We used to have what they called Markaz Klita, projects, housing projects. They were 5-6 story apartment buildings built like a campus with gates around it, barred gates to keep them safe and secure. I think they had security guard there watching the gate, and they'd be able to stay there a year. The Ulpan was right on the campus. They had the government office to get all their benefits and rights. It was right there. They had daycare right for free, right in the Merkaz Klita. And they had, I think they were holding school. No, they took buses to school. They had daycare. Other than that, the school bus would come, stop, and they'd get on the school bus right there at the place they were living, and the school would bring them right back there. So that's I don't believe they ran unless there was some really large Merkaz Klita now. They had one outside of Jerusalem that was, maybe it had 6 or 8 buildings in it. And they might have had, grades 1 to 5 there, maybe, I don't know. I've been there a couple of times. I never lived in one. I don't know what the deal was. And they have a grocery store right at that Merkaz Klita, which will have fresh breads, frozen food, ice cream, vegetables, drinks, candy, cake, paper towels, toilet paper, that kind of stuff, bug spray and all that, starch and laundry detergent and toilet cleaner and all that. And then they would have, wax for the floor, and they had meat. They sold chicken and shawarma and falafel, which isn't meat, and stuff like that there in the freezer. So you really didn't have to go venture out. You could just stay there. Now, the kibbutz, the Ulpan used to take the people to field trips after they had some Hebrew under their belt to different stores, little grocery stores and big supermarkets, and teach them how to shop. They don't do that anymore, as far as I know. And the people were all trying to get the new immigrants working as soon as possible. They wanted to get them working. I know guys that came from Europe and America that were lawyers in their home country, and they learned a little bit of Hebrew here, and they had to work as an apprentice they had to have some Hebrew skill and work as an apprentice for a lawyer here. I think it was a year. And if he approved them, they became a lawyer. I don't think they had to pass the bar, if I remember correctly. So, that's how they were working. If you were an American doctor or a Canadian doctor, they found a way to get you practicing medicine pretty quick. Most people who came at an age where they didn't have a big military obligation, they might have had to go to the military. Let's say you were 33 years old and you had a wife and two kids. They might have took you to the military for 3 months, and then you were in the reserves till you were 40, something like that. Sometimes it wouldn't even take you. Like if you had 3 or 4 kids and you were in your 30s, they'd say, forget it. Most of the kids go in the military, they're 18, 19 years old. They only keep you in the reserves until you're 40. That's it. So, if you're 35, they might not even want to bother with you. Also, if you served in the military in another country like Russia, that was taken into account, and that would reduce the amount of time in the military. How they do it today, I don't know. Probably in a similar way. Now they seem to take Messianics in the military. They really didn't want them in years past. If they knew you were Messianic, they would want you out of there or something, So that's, now this costs money. So where is Israel getting the money, or is it getting the money? Well, I have prepared notes for you on how and how much Israel's getting money right now. And it's actually quite a bit. Let me get it open. I still got my notes. Oh, when I told you before, Israel Day on Fifth Parade, it's the Fifth Avenue Parade. I had to think that again. There it is. Okay, we got the $35 billion liquefied natural gas deal with Egypt over some years. $35 billion. It's actually 34.7 to 35 billion. It's in here somewhere. Okay. But 0.3 is a lot of money. It's a few hundred million. 300 million, I think. $3.1 billion Israel Germany contract for the Arrow missile. It's an anti-missile missile, basically. And then it signed the second one, which I think was the same size. So that's about 6.2 billion. Then we got record high-tech funding in 2025. $15.6 billion. Israel's startups raised nearly $16 billion in private funding in 2025. That's a lot of money. Higher than 2024, despite geopolitical challenges and so forth. Okay. Major tech M&A transactions this year. Alphabet, that's Google, acquisition of WIZ for $32 billion. Okay. Palo Alto, that's near Sunnyvale on 101 in the San Francisco Bay Area. Palo Alto Network, Stanford is in Palo Alto. $25 billion deal for CyberArk. See all the money? Financial Markets Corporation Developments. Zim Integrated Shipping, the big Israeli container shipping companies called Zim. They've been around for ages. I knew a guy that when he just came to Israel after the military, and he was working for Zim as a salesman in Los Angeles. Acquisition of Wiz for $32 billion. And then they had this Palo Alto thing for $25 billion. And then with Zim, the share price for Zim surged 9% in one day, reflecting investment interest and other things. Other things to talk about helping the economy in Israel goes like this. The government passed a temporary 15% tax on the banks. Well, when you tax the banks, you hurt at each bank, 2 people, 3 people that are basically getting a lot of money at the bank. So you collect a lot of dollars and hurt very few people. They got so much saved up, it doesn't matter to them. Excessive profits were there. Okay, then they doubled the duty-free online import taxes from $75 to $150. So if I order from Amazon next week, if I order today, I can bring in $75 worth of goods without paying any of the VAT, 18%. After January 1st, I could do it at $150. So that's quite a difference. If I buy some things like supplements and stuff, I gotta stop at $75, or I got to pay the 18%, not just on the items, but also on the shipping cost. So it's crazy. So now I could buy $149, well, actually $150 worth of goods, and the shipping that you got to pay for isn't going to be double. Normally, if the shipping increased from $75 to $150 order, it's going to be 20, 30, 40% more, not double. So we're in better shape there. So all the pieces are coming together. We're getting the money. The money goes to the government, and what it goes to is companies. The corporate tax in Israel is 23% of the profits. So that money goes, to the government. So the government gets richer. So the government's getting positioned to handle a big aliyah. But where are they going to get them to live? See, this is going to make the housing way more expensive. So how can the people come here? They don't have the money. Most of the time, a Jew that's living in a house in Europe that costs $1.8 million could sell it, and is probably not going to want to come to Israel because he's getting a really nice house for $1.8 million, and in Israel, he's going to get not that nice of a house for $1.8 million, probably half as nice or a third as nice. It's probably not going to have a pool. It's probably not going to be on an acre. It may not even have a jacuzzi in or outside the house. And, this type of thing, And they might, just if they're uncomfortable in the UK, they may want to go move to another part of Europe. Depends how scared they are, Now, somebody that has their hands on, $5 or $10 million, they can get a very nice house in Israel for 2.5, 3.5 million. Like $1 million house in America, something like that. And they can buy a nice car and stuff like that. But I don't understand how the people are going to make it here. Okay, I'm at a loss. Where are they going to get the money? Don't get it. People that live for generations in Europe or America, and they've got themselves a 3-4 bedroom, 3,000 square foot house. They got a pool, they got a jacuzzi inside, outside. They got an outside barbecue area, a really nice one. They got a kitchen with a gen air where the air gets sucked down into the counter in the kitchen and takes the cooking smells out. All of this stuff, and they're not gonna. What are they gonna do here? I mean, I don't know who's gonna hire them. See, Netanyahu gotta go. Maybe that'll all fit together in the. Even if we get another Esbot bum like Bennett will, rise to the cause, and he'll start making life easier for the new immigrants and starting to pull them over. Netanyahu doesn't want to do anything for them. We don't even hear him talk about it. He doesn't want them. But it's not what he wants. And I don't think Trump cares about them one way or the other. I think if there's Aliyah or not Aliyah, Trump could care less. So all these things coming together at the same time point me to Aliyah happening. And I see the scripture in Zechariah 12 that lends it to it. So what I'm trying to do with you guys is show you the subtle things, the undercurrents, if you will, that people don't see. An undercurrent is not visible on the surface of the water, but if you're standing there, it'll pull you. Okay? So people are getting pulled, but it's not obvious that they're getting pulled. It's not out on the surface yet. The Muslims will bust a gut if they realize an aliyah is coming. So will Netanyahu and his friends. And you all may be in this too. So it looks very good to me. Now, maybe the many Jews in Jerusalem are a result of Elijah training the Levites. I don't know that. See, that could be. I don't know. It could be they made Aliyah. They were not steeped in ultra orthodoxy or anything like that, and they were more open to the gospel. And boom, they got the true gospel, guys. I don't have the origins of where these Jews that are trusting in Jehovah came from. I don't know. I don't believe, came out of the synagogues. It's possible that God, delivered them from the synagogues and instilled the true gospel in them. That could happen. So I don't have it. We can pray that we get it, but it's not written in the scriptures in a way that we could, get it down precisely. So I don't know, but it looks like to me Israel's getting all this money to cover the big aliyahs about to come. When this new mayor in New York gets in, it's gonna go south, guys. And you got 1 million Jews. Now, is roughly 1 million, going to go make Aliyah to Israel, or go to live in Yonkers, or move to California, or something like that? I don't know. I doubt anything like that will be exclusive. And then when are the sleeper agents going to start? And that could be a function of when is, Trump going to start on Venezuela, and that is likely the snare that's going to suck him in. He could get sucked in with Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, Venezuela, and he could wind up with 1 million troops down there, and then he's in the lurch. So that's what we got. So it looks like the pieces are coming together. That's what I'm trying to show you. It's not that open. In other words, what it looks like to me is God is moving us quite rapidly to Zechariah 12. Okay? But it doesn't look that way. Nobody's going to know the day or the hour. If that makes any kind of sense. It should make sense. Let's take a quick look at the live stream. A lot of people don't want to hear this stuff today, They call themselves Christians and they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything that disagrees with their pre-trib raptures and all their other crap, or mid-trib or post-trib or whatever, you know. All right, I'm going to close this out with a prayer. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for your peace, safety, protection, and joy, and calm and rest to be on me and my wife and all the true believers in our households. I pray we have strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power flow through us so we don't get sick, ill, or hurt, and things that need to be healed in us get healed every day until they're all healed up. And I pray we be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole, and our animals and pets be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray we don't have any accidents or tickets or breakdowns, getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any mode of transportation. I pray we don't get cheated, robbed, frauded, ripped off, scammed, discriminated against. I pray we can be at peace with our neighbors, our families, our employers, our co-workers, and we have no trouble or issues from corporations or governmental agencies, and any such things would loose off us, never to return and never to bother us. I pray the unclean spirits could not surveillance us or observe us in our house or our vehicles or anywhere we're going, or our animals and pets. And I pray that the unclean spirits cannot know or tell what we're doing, what we're saying in person, what we're saying or communicating on the internet or on the phone. They just can't tell or know. I pray we all have adequate finances and then some. And I pray that if we need clients or customers for our own businesses, they're there, we have them. And I pray we understand the scriptures better, and the broadcasts improve, they become better, and we don't have any buffering or failing of the live stream or when it becomes a video. And I pray for the peace of Yerushalayim, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that if you're a believer. In terms of them being able to know your thoughts, I know from testing it that I was on the phone more than once with false believers, and I would say things, and I knew I would imagine thoughts of horrible things with them to see if I got a reaction, and I did. I mean, absurd things. It definitely got a reaction. I have no doubt about it. Okay. And when you're in person with them, okay, on email, they get nothing. If you're live chatting with them, I think they get something. If you're live telephone call on the internet or the regular phones, they're going to be able to do things. Okay. Not so much do things, they'll be able to know what's going on in your head if they have an unclean spirit in them. And they like to look in your eyes. So if you're in person with them and you're wearing sunglasses like this, they can't see your eyes. They get nothing. I've tested this. They get nothing. Take the sunglasses off and then boom, they lock their eyes onto you. Okay? So in person, if you're concerned about that, just make sure that the sunglasses wrap around, they cover up here, they can't see nothing, and there should be some kind of a mirror effect. And you just go stand in front of the mirror in a room, but don't go into a room with very intense bright lights. That's not exactly the case. Get, a regular room where there's some light and there's some sunlight, and see if you could see the pupils of your eye and the whites of your eye. If you can, you need a stronger sunglass. You could get $7 sunglasses with a full mirror, a shiny silver mirror at Amazon, and that's pure defeat for them. Or any heavily tinted one will do it. But if you got a mirror, that's perfect. Okay? And you don't want to wear something like this at night because it's going to hurt your vision. So you want to have something else that's, maybe you get a gradient where over here it's dark and then at the bottom it's lighter. So when you look down at the ground, you see where you're going, That's called the gradient. And, if you get a good one. Now, if you go to an eyeglass store and you tell the guy, the optometrist, what you want to make, you don't have to tell him, oh, I want to, stop the demon. Say, I want a gradient with a full mirror down halfway and then a light gradient. He just specs it and sends it to the lab and you got it. There's nothing to it. If you go to Walmart, you're probably not going to find it. You just got to go to it's going to cost you a few bucks, You could have them put a mirror on it and stuff like that. If you got a prescription, you could go get a full mirror on it, and that'll do it. If you have it full mirrored in blue, you'll get a little bit more better visibility. If you go to Amazon and you get the full silvery mirror, it's going to be less vision than these will, but you'll have you don't really have to get 100% cut on what they could see in, just enough so they can't really see the round of your eye. They can't see the whites or the dark center. That's all you got to do. That stops them from doing anything in person. Will they know you're a believer? If they have a demon, they will. Will they be able to look in your eyes and do stuff to you or get your thoughts or something? No way. Can they do it with email? No way. Can they do it in person without you covering your eyes? Yeah. Can they do it on a telephone call or a WhatsApp call? Yep. Can they do it on a chat, like Zoom or something like that? Yep. Yep. Couldn't they do it if you're on some kind of chat like Zoom with the sunglasses on? Probably not. One-on-one telephone calls, if you put the glasses on, I don't know, maybe you can't, it doesn't work. Maybe they can only see what you see. I don't know. I'd have to test that. I don't have any communication with false believers that way, but I can tell you that on email nothing happens because they're not on with you at the same time. Being on something like an email with you at the same time would be like a Zoom or a WhatsApp with texting or something. It doesn't do them any good. If you sent them snail mail, of course, it doesn't do them any good. Can you stop them? Yeah. You can say, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I bind any unclean spirit from remaining inside any person. If the person attempts to do any eye contact with me in person or over the internet, or if they try to read my thoughts using the unclean spirits on a phone call or internet, I command any such unclean spirit, or I bind any such unclean spirit from remaining in the person. And as soon as the person attempts to do the eye contact, the evil eye, or the reading my thoughts, or putting thoughts in, or any witchcraft, or anything like that, the unclean spirit shall immediately depart from them, never return unto them again, and shall never tell them why they left and what was going on. And these bindings and commands and loosings are set in place for the next 5 years, continuously beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And then they got nothing. What happened, I did this once, I was a consultant in a company, and there was a witch over there, and we were having a meeting outside talking about something, and then she went to look at me, and she jolted like that, That's because the unclean spirit had to leave her right away, and she didn't know what the heck was going on. I did. Oh, you little witch, I got your number. So that gets rid of them. then they can't do anything to you. And then you're aware of it. And, they're going to go cry out for another unclean spirit and return to their vomit. Or then you know who they are. And then if you've got to have interaction with them, toss them beforehand. You always win. When you fight them in the spirit, you win every single time, coming and going, inside out, up and down. You're always going to win. Okay? That's it. It's simple. Fight them in the spirit, you win. Okay? That's all there is. And when you're fighting them in the spirit, are you working with faith? Of course. Can they do that? No, they have no faith. They don't have any faith in the demons. They need to have conversation with them and see them and hear them and talk to them, and then they do it. That's not faith, that's flesh. They're real losers. The unclean spirits are losers, and the people that serve them are bigger losers, I think, or just as bad. And they all wind up in the lake of fire, and they all think I don't know, I think the unclean spirits know they're not going to beat it. But the people think that they're gods and stuff like that. It's rather absurd, They're in a snare too, in a way. They won't give up on their 2-bit parlor tricks, They won't give up. But you don't need sunglasses to defeat them. You can just defeat them with spiritual warfare. The only time you're going to not be able to make it work is if you're giving place to the devil, because you can't use your spiritual warfare to cover up the consequences of sin. It doesn't work. God gave no man excuse to sin, and by giving you, Luke 10, the power to do things to demons and tread over all the power of the enemy, that would mean he's given you the ability to sin and not get punished for it, and that is not how it works. So that would be the exception. That's about it. Of course, if you're preaching another gospel, that's not good. If that's sin, and then there's sin people do and they don't know they're doing it. Like once upon a time, we didn't know that Schofield was not correct. And we didn't know that churches were sinful. We didn't know all this, right? So I don't think the Lord would really hold it against us. When you get to the point and you know it's wrong and you're doing it anyway, that's a problem. But if you don't know it's wrong, it's not really sin. It is and it isn't, But if the scripture says not to do it, and the scripture says not to do it, like denominations and different doctrines and stuff, and you're doing it anyway, well, now it's on you. All right, so I hope you got something out of this. I hope we didn't have any problems with buffering. I don't know what to do if we do. I don't know. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. And that's it, kids. Thanks. So many people come in here and write bad posts. It's incredible.